Anyway, Fnatic versus the 100 Thieves. This is going to be hype. As you guys said, on the bright side, hype for Europe has gone down a little bit after the game earlier in the day. Fnatic are our top-seeded team from Europe, and they're going up against the second seed from North America in 100 Thieves, and the ban's already coming out thick and fast.
You got to remember, though, if one win doesn't mean everything, one loss shouldn't either for Europe. So
very true.
We'll see how Fnatic is going to perform here. And 100 Thieves, it's been a while since we've seen this team play, and they have gotten massively more practice with Ricard than they have ever had when they showed on stage with him before. So we'll be interested to see if this is the same team we remember from North America, playing slow, risk-averse, trying to lose the minimum, and then take over around the Baron Dance, around team fight stage, or if they're going to try to put on a more proactive style. Because Fnatic throughout playoffs basically ran that style. They were falling behind in the early game all throughout playoffs, averaged down over 1,500 gold at 15, but their team fighting was so damn good that no one was really able to handle it.
Well, we're 6-man through here. Just to quickly recap, Akali, Pyke, Tristana on the 100 Thieves side, Talalia, Aatrox, and Urgot all banned away by Fnatic, and Afro going to get the priority here in this first pick. They'll take Alistar as their first overall pick of the draft.
We may very well see an instant Xayah Rakan pickup from the side of Fnatic, but they're going to pivot away from that. Not a huge amount of priority on the Rakan at the very least, but we've seen how much priority it is, and if they're going to give away the Alistar as a first rotation, I guess they also know that they're not going to lock in Rakan, right? If with the Alistar already locked in. So putting that early focus on getting Soa as a strong top lane matchup. He is well known for his tanky style champions. He is that kind of controlled voice for the team, consistent, often very reliable, and you see how impactful he is when they get to those team fighting stages.
It's also really interesting just looking at the bans. Obviously a lot of respect over to some of the champions that have been so good for these individuals. Hylissang's Pyke has been insane in Europe, and Reckless, throughout the course of his career, Tristana really has been his #1 champion. So gotta say I'm a little bit surprised to see Someday going back to the Ornn. Would have, well, maybe not surprised, but a little bit disappointed. Would have liked perhaps to see him try to go for a more aggressive matchup, try to take a bit of an advantage on the top side with Soaz, because Someday really has been kind of the pressure valve for 100 Thieves in North America. He is the guy that often they depend on very heavily to get them to the late game.
And maybe the guy they rely on then is Ando, kind of the guy that has been coming up on this squad, has been looking better and better as he gets more reps in. Did draw a Talaia ban, which of course would have been great if he wants to play aggressive early from the jungle, but already in the phase 2 because Fnatic snapped off Rakan to finally reunite the lovers for a game here at Worlds. And Rise LeBlanc are going to be 2 mid lane bans as Fnatic find their final ban in this draft.
So Reckless and Hylissang get themselves a strong 2v2 in the bot side of the map. We have a tank v tank on the top side, both pretty solid engages, but arguably the Ornn with the slightly stronger one. Now we move into the second phase, and you're going to have Ryu being forced into blind picking his mid laner, which is exactly what Caps wants. You're guaranteed to give him the counter pick, and he has played a wide variety of champions during the regular season, only behind Nukeduck and his champion Ocean during the regular season. So you know that he's more than prepared to find that counter, which makes me concerned, would Ryu be the kind of player to blind pick something like a Syndra, which we did see yesterday get hard countered by that of Vitality?
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I mean, his kind of most popular picks were the Zoe, the Ryze, and the Malzahar throughout the regular season. I do think Malzahar is somewhat reasonable as a blind pick if you're trying to just neutralize the lane. If they are concerned about that 1v1 matchup, you could look for something like a Galio, like a Malzahar, that could, maybe just kind of stand even in that lane, because I do think that Fnatic and Caps in particular should have a strong 1v1 advantage over Ryu, who has been someone who more survives lanes rather than dominates.
Well, we'll see how that all shakes out, but nice and straightforward here for Fnatic. Proxor will take Olaf here for this pick, and like you mentioned, Betty, they are understandably saving that final pick for Caps. So Ryu, pick your poison. What do you want to take into your blind pick mid matchup?
Well, they can also start with the jungler as well. The question is, they don't need much more of a front line, so they're going to go for more of a scaling kind of dueling option. Graves can hold his own against the Olaf in the early levels, but really it comes into those skirmishes, and you heard the analysts talking about mid-jungle duo with the Olaf already being locked in. To me, this implies 100 Thieves want to be able to match that in some capacity.
Yeah, and I think the Graves makes a lot of sense. When Kindred is taken off the table, Graves really has been kind of the next go-to for Onda as far as carries are concerned. He is quite strong on those marksmen, and Syndra looks like it will be the option here. So Caps does have a counter pick, and he doesn't have to go straight for a lane, though. Orianna paired up alongside the Rakan can be incredibly strong.
I'm thinking around
Yes.
I know my European mid laner. I got that one, so I'm pretty happy with that. But they do have a lot of AD damage in their composition as well,
Yeah.
which is something they
Only
have to
AD.
be. Yeah, there's something they have to respect. You could argue that with the passive, he already has some magic damage. but
That's pushing it.
It's pushing it. I definitely agree. So because you are drafting full AD, that does mean that you're looking for those early game advantages, early to mid game before that armor comes through. And it's something Ryu has to be very careful. I love the exhaust that he's drafted because when Caps played this during the regular season, I don't know if you saw that game versus the Unicorns of Love, but he found 15 kills in a game during the regular season up against the Unicorns of Love mid laner. So he's very comfortable on this champion, and he will look to get in your face.
He certainly is, and he's a player who can capitalize on those lane advantages. Oftentimes we haven't seen those early game picks, I think, panning out as well throughout this Worlds, but this is an opportunity for Fnatic to prove their lane dominance, because I think if you're going into the mid and late game stages on even keel, it will be so difficult to deal with this armor stacking Ornn, to be able to deal with the efficiencies that Ninja Tabbies and things like that can bring, alongside an Alistar who's going to be up in your face. So we'll see what Fnatic can get done.
And when we were coming into this game, gentlemen, the thing that we talked about is what style will Fnatic bring? Will it be more geared towards the late game team fighting that they showed during the playoffs in Europe, or will it be more of the regular season early game skirmishing, lots of play around mid? To me, in their debut, it looks like the focus will be on Caps. You think that Lovers Duo is going to stay bot? I'm here to tell you that Hylissang will spend more time mid than he will in the bot lane.
They also have the ability to perhaps spread the map, put Caps in a side lane, try to have him split push, try to have themselves avoiding those 5v5 matchups, looking for picks. And on the side of 100 Thieves, this looks like a standard 100 Thieves comp. This looks like survive the laning phase, have someday look for plays with the Ornn, and wait until you can control the Baron Dance, control vision, and try to find the preferential fights.
I will say that in terms of mid lane setup, 100 Thieves do have options. Graves, Syndra, they're not weak, especially at level 6, and with an easy to land stun against a melee champion in the form of Aurelia, 100 Thieves do have options in the early game to play around.
Yeah, and you talked about Hylissang's his ability to go mid lane. Aphromoo and Someday are two guys who also love to do that, roaming down on the Ornn, roaming up on the Alistar. We could see tons of focus around this mid lane, because if you can shut down Caps on the side of 100 Thieves, that may be your key to victory. 100%. And likewise, if Caps gets going, he may just close the game out himself.
Well, looks like teams have played it pretty safe here at level 1. Just some shallow wards getting a bit of vision. Oh, actually a bit of a deeper one there from Fnatic, just protecting some of their sides of the jungle. That likely means Broxah is taking a trip down to the other side of the map. He's going to move down towards that blue buff now.
It is worth mentioning as well, Ryu did swap over to the cleanse. So, we'll be able to cleanse the potential Aurelia stun. You can do that, but it is not going to be exhaust for the straight up damage reduction. So they'll certainly have to use that very well.
We're up here though on the 100 Thieves side, and getting a pretty healthy amount of help there. Fnatic keeping their bot lane on the side though. So Broxah actually started Wolves to kind of mitigate some of the early aggression from the camps, given that he was leashless. So that will give Fnatic's duo a early lead here on the wave.
Yeah, we'll see if they decide to actually try to push. Because if both bot lanes are fighting for that push, that can sometimes dictate who gets the bottom side scuttle. And both of these junglers in the early game can be pretty strong.
And in terms of where they look to invest their early pressure, like bot lane will definitely be a big one for both of them. Under will be spotted out, so Broxah likely just going to path away from that. He doesn't have a huge amount of HP, and because they don't have that priority in the bot side
Bot
of the map,
lane's moving up. Hylissang's coming.
I think it's dangerous considering they're only level 1, and yeah, okay. They're going to respect that. They're going to back away. So I think this is pretty safe from Fnatic in terms of the early game.
I definitely agree, but the danger here now is Anda can run straight to the second scuttle and try to just double scuttle his opponent. It is tough, I think, for Broxah to win a 1v1 here without red buff, and that is going to be the option for Anda. I think this is really smart jungle pathing. Bot lane shoves, you can test that bottom side scuttle where you're expecting him to start, and then run straight to the scuttle, knowing Olaf has to pick up his red before he really has a chance to duel up against that Graves.
Yeah, Anda doing a good job so far in this early game, showcasing that even with his inexperience and this being his first World Championship, already still feeling pretty confident in terms of the early jungling. But while we do have some new players, I also want to reference back to some of the old players that we have on the Rift in Soaz and Sunday. Some of you may be familiar with this matchup because it happened back in 2015 between KT and Origin when these two met during the group stages of the World Championship. And the last time they match up, Sunday smashed.
Yeah, he got dumpstered, but it was 1-1. so they did actually end up splitting games, but it certainly did not look good for SOAS.
Also want to point out that was in Europe, actually in Paris.
Yes.
Of course, in the group stage, and Soaz got smashed. Now that Soaz is in Sunday's homeland, perhaps it's time for him to smash Sunday. There may be something to that.
And my favorite stat there is the isolated deaths at 11. This was something that Soaz used to be known for. This year has been way better for Soaz. He doesn't make those random plays where he randomly gets caught out on a side lane, but he's definitely a lot more consistent. Arguably, of the two top laners between Fnatic, right now, he's the slightly better performer over Bwipo, and it's just because he's slightly more passive, a little bit more controlled. And many fans considered him a top 3 top laner in Europe after the regular season. And for Sunday, he's kind of been that big carry for 100. He's the guy that you often turn to make the big play. And who can forget that fantastic Jax 1v4 that he made to stave off that game end in a very clutch game.
Yeah, and I mean, he was voted first team all NALCS. He was considered the best performing top laner, you know, up there with Licorice, outperforming him in that summer split, and really has been a shining light for the team. Has been able to perform both on carries and tanks, and we'll see how well he's going to be able to match up here against Soaz, who just has tremendous amounts of experience.
Jungle meeting though here as Canada will sweep away all these little raptors. Smites for both sides as well. We'll see who gets the big one in just a moment as Afro is going to go in onto Reckless. Looking for that auto attack stomp, but it's actually being turned around very massively here. Afro forced to use Rakara's heal, and that Ignite ran out just in time to save Afro's life.
Yeah, the route there from Reckless was so well timed. He actually rooted Rakara as Afro engaged, so there was no follow-up really available for Rakara. And they're trying to set up this dive. Roxy just wants to go straight in for it. I think they're going to be able to get it. We'll see.
And is really far away. He's making his way there. He always spotted out on the ward, but this wave clear is not fast enough. I think this is a big risk from the side of Fnatic.
They're going to turn.
Maybe actually looking for the jungler instead, who did just walk over a ward. Predator pop there for Broxham, and will make sure the duo leaves his jungler and leaves his bot lane alone.
Yeah, that was actually really smart from Anda. Not only that he did respond, but that he anticipated they could be setting up a trap for him there. So handling that very well. Still good pressure for Fnatic in this 2v2, and it should net them this early dragon, which is going to be so nice for the laning phase.
Caps does get the stun. Not going to force the cleanse, but just zips back away to a minion. Such a clean trade there.
He's level 6 and he has Ignite. Ryu
Solo kill time.
Yeah, I was looking at it, I was like, okay, he's just getting a bit of poke damage. I was like, is he going to try and solo kill Ryu this early into the game? He didn't have information on where the jungler was, so I think it was smart to just back away. And he's not going to be too aggressive just yet.
Yeah, and honestly, I can't really think of any champion that more consistently gets solo kills in competitive play than Aurelia.
100%,
like,
100%.
It's actually insane how often they do get it. The champion's 1v1 ability is just so ridiculously powerful with all the dashes, and also the speed of the dashes. The movement speed there, like the dashes, is so quick. It's almost more of a blink, and
I believe it wasn't even that long ago. It was MSI semi-finals where we saw the mid laner of Kingzone bringing it out and finding an immediate solo kill very early on. I believe against Maple that was as well. So really fun champion to watch, especially in the hands of Caps. Right now, the team isn't really playing around him. It's been much more focused on the bot side of the map, trying to enable the Zyra Khan duo, which many pros have considered one of the strongest duos in the current meta. And you can see that with the advantage that Reckless has built up, the lane is going pretty favorably in Fnatic's way for the time.
Yep, also mid lane looking good. Cap did deny off a few CS there as Ryu got forced off from that early trade. And so was also altered back to lane, so it did save his TP for potential play. Both top laners actually ready to join some sort of fight. Sometimes ult could be extremely good if a fight was to break out, perhaps on the bot side of the map.
pretty interesting to see Someday also rushing straight for that Sheen, a fairly aggressive pick in that straight-up 1v1, especially when you're thinking, hey, this is an all-AD team. I would not have been surprised to see him just go straight for a Frozen Heart, which I think is going to add incredible value. He also must feel that he can continue to pressure this and maybe get a bit of an advantage, as there may be a 3v3 down here.
Nice timing there from Killersong, because that Scry's Bloom just barely missed Anda as he walked down towards the bottom side of the map. Ryu also repaying Caps in kind. Caps does need to go shop, as Ryu did get one in already, and some early Sork boots actually pay some dividends there as he is able to chunk Aurelia down and force her back to base.
Just actually get the stats. So Aurelia had 125 solo kills throughout the summer split in about 330 games. So quite frequent, actually, for those solo kills to be seen, and certainly an incredible playmaking champion as we're seeing 100 Thieves look to try to challenge this blue buff.
Remember that Aurelia has just gone back to base. The push is actually in favor of Rakara and Afro move, which means that Ryu can very clearly steam this away. And I love the fact that Ander is utilizing the strength of Graves to really force Broxah back, and it's not giving the Fnatic jungler as much control as he would have liked, even though he often has pressure in the lanes, and it's just due to the early game strength that a Graves doesn't get.
And this is something that Enda has been very good at doing. A lot of people would point to one of his best games of the split being against Echo Fox, where he actually used a Poppy into Lee Sin against Dardoch to heavily counter jungle, to heavily pressure his opponent. And that is often how he gets advantages. Less about going for the kills, more about stealing resources.
I just want to say that every time we pan back to this lane, I immediately start worrying for Ryu's life, because that's how good Cap is as an individual player in these sorts of situations.
But you've also got to remember, right, that, I mean, I don't think Caps is the kind of player that lets pressure get to him, but at the same time, last year was his first Worlds. He's definitely grown a lot since then. We need to check out in the bot lane, though.
Ooh, Afro here first, but a good Ragnarok from Broxah will stop that Pulverize, and he's just going to walk on out of there.
Again, though, 100 Thieves are anticipating these plays. Afromu simply moves over, and they expend nothing. They get the ultimate out of Broxah, which means his playmaking is now significantly inhibited. So remember, 100 Thieves going up against this all-physical damage comp want to play slow. They want to just respond to what is happening and try to drag this game out to where the Ornn can potentially become that invincible force.
That's very true, but at the same time, look at what they're losing in terms of map pressure, because the bot lane is now 20 CS down, Caps has full control over mid, and they may look to set up a dive top.
But again, and on the right side, I guess the blue buff kind of helping out Caps. No, surely not. That was a very nice attempt, but Ryu does get the buff.
I've got to say I'm kind of tilted by the build from Someday, though. Like, you're going up against full physical damage, and it looks like he's building towards an Abyssal.
Yeah.
I mean, he wants CDR, sure, I get that, but I don't think Abyssal...
The Aurelia passive, that's what it is.
You knew the whole time. I don't think Abyssal is the play here. Like, I just think this is an incorrect build straight up. We'll see if he just wants to sit on the Catalyst for a laning phase, and then maybe it's more defensible, but
unless he's going Righteous Glory. That's the other thing that he, I believe, also built from.
No, it built from Glacial Shroud.
I'm thinking of the old build, my apologies, you're right.
But, you know, it does seem very questionable. We'll see if he can make it work. It's certainly not necessarily going to decide the game, but you want to be stacking that armor early and often.
You want to optimize, right?
Yeah.
Like, and right now, getting magic resistance just doesn't make a huge amount of sense. So as he keeps bullying him around, even though that Someday has the Sheen in his back pocket, which often gives the Ornn a little bit more laning power. Moving away from top lane, though, we can see, as we talked about, the supports roaming around the map a lot. This kind of hurts Rakara a little more than it does Reckless, because in the 1 versus 1, the... Ryu.
What a great stun. Caps looking for it, does put the Vanguard's in. Flash forward, that's a solo kill. Caps does it in style.
We called it. Caps pulled it off. Ryu just slightly oversteps the laning phase, and the ranked 10th player at Worlds finds himself a solo kill.
Yeah, you hit that stun. You knew he had it, but ooh, quick ult there from Reckless. Nicely done as Fnatic trying to pressure down here. They're trying to bring down Caps as well.
Not a bad time. Healer Sign pops the
coming
quickness. Afro going to be the target. Does have Unbreakable Will force to pop it, but he's already taking a little too much damage. Ander is here, but Broxah with an axe does take down Afro. Here's Soaz charging in. The knockout from Sion up to the ulti is good for the double. And Caps looking to play clean up. Broxah still alive for so much longer. The stun lands and Caps cleans up another one as Fnatic looks at Evander, who's forced to flash away.
Incredible plays there from Fnatic, getting down to the bottom side. This is the early game proactivity we needed to see. They get 4 kills. They're going to get first turret, and they have just earned themselves a massive lead.
And it all translates off the solo kill from Cap, the MVP of the summer split in Europe. He finds a beautiful 1v1 onto Ryu, who on the Syndra, you don't have the mobility to escape from the Aurelia. Caps had to use everything, but then he immediately rotates down towards the bot side of the map. This isn't a replay, this is live.
Yeah, goodbye, Soaz.
Soaz overextends bot. I said that he'd fix this issue, and then he goes and dies in a side lane. God damn it, Soaz.
Quick check, can't see any allies with 2,000 units, so we'll tally that up in the isolated deaths column.
1 out of 11. 1 out of 11. He's still got a long way to go.
But so I thought that was the replay. Fnatic then quickly translate down to the bot side of the map, and then with Broxah and Caps coming in for the collapse, along with a very quick TP from Soaz, they find themselves a bunch of kills. And now, what was a very even game has translated into a 3,000 gold lead in Fnatic's back pocket.
Yeah, plus 2 dragons. The Infernal as well is going to be a big deal there for Fnatic, who will be stacking up a fair bit of AD. We'll see, though, if 100 Thieves can stabilize. This is very often how a lot of their games do go. They, fall a bit behind, and then they try to lose the minimum. They try to maintain vision and just farm it out. Delay, delay, delay. Never give up that kind of killing blow.
Pro looking for Cap that already got the stun. Auto attack will land for an extra stun, but no follow-up really available for the rest of 100 Thieves. Hillsong now getting chased out towards the Rift Tower, but he'll dash towards the top side of the map and be safe back towards Reckless. Still a pretty big grouping here around the left side trying to take down this Rift Tower. 100 Thieves do start the objective.
Yeah, I don't know if they can, though. Ooh, the advantage they have is the Caps is actually going back to base. You imagine he's going to pick up the Trinity Force. And so 100 Thieves have a numbers advantage right now because Sunday's even coming in from behind Broxah.
Ulti forced out as well. Ragnarok popped by the Olaf. Fnatic, though, buying a lot of time. I feel like some Fog of War might be helping them here because we know Caps is back in base, but 100 Thieves actually pull off the objective. Anders is trying to take the crap, does get it.
But at the very least, they see Soaz in vision and know he has no TP.
Yes.
Broxah just used his ultimate. You have 5 members there. I'm actually very surprised that they don't commit to that, and I do think that's somewhat of a mistake, a little bit too risk-averse perhaps, and worried about maybe giving up that kind of one play that throws the entire game that they can't come back from. So they will back off. They'll try to give up the minimum.
Whee! A lot of damage there.
Wow.
And to force the back away. I didn't expect it to do quite that much, but so as with a bit of a sneaky brush camp. Does give Caps priority here on the wave, and Ryu, you are not safe behind your turret, as Reckless is also going to take the top lane out of turret. We talk about 100 Thieves being good when they kind of neutralize lanes and lose the minimum, but that's not going to be the case here. Caps, look at the solo kill again, makes it look so easy!
A thing of beauty there, Caps proxying on Ryu practically, diving the tier 2 turret when the tier 1 is still up.
And Ryu getting his welcome back to European mid laners. Cap says, hey, have you missed me?
No, the answer is no.
3-0 right now is the kill score for Caps. Beautifully played from the mid. And, in draft we talked about it, running the risk of blind picking the Syndra.
Yeah.
It was considered like one of the strong blind picks coming into Worlds, but teams are finding counters, and now we see 100 Thieves wanting to contest it.
Someday a one-man ulti on a Broxah who does not have Ragnarok up just yet, finally gets it back, but he is still exhausted. There's Hillsang trying to find the charm out, does actually get something on the way out to give Broxah a very sleek exit, but 100 Thieves, they will take the Herald.
Yeah, getting the Herald is something, but I mean, they're down very significantly now. They need to slow down the pace of this game. Fnatic is just doing so well. Soaz makes the rotation over. Ryu's trying to wave clear this, and then in goes Cap, sees the opportunity, Q to the minion, hits that ultimate straight onto Ryu, and just deletes him.
And just as Ander goes back to base as well, Ryu thinks that he's safe in between his turrets. Unfortunately, he was not. Now, as you rightly said, I think it was a bit of a mistake there from Broxah to just go up towards the Rift Herald and try and secure it. He didn't have enough pressure elsewhere on the map. He didn't have Reckless anywhere near him, and they couldn't really go for the fight. But Hillsang played that beautifully. He was very patient with how he utilized his charm to lock down all 3 members that were trying to kill Broxah, and so he guides his jungler out of that situation. And for many fans that may not have followed the EU LCS this year, Hillsang, you may remember, was a very coin flip player, especially if you think back to Rift Rivals last year, where EU did not do as well as they've done this year. He was the kind of guy that would kind of make you the game-winning play. He was the guy that you flip a coin, you don't really know if it's going to win you or lose you the game. Whereas since joining Fnatic, he's found a lot more consistency, and pairing up with Reckless has definitely brought the reins back a lot more, but he's still willing to make those great outplays.
And I think it's nice to have a player who can flip that switch and go very aggressive, and I think that was kind of more required of him when they were playing with Whippo in the bot lane, because you wanted to try to snowball those games before Marksman could potentially outscale a mage down on the bottom side. But, again, as you point out, with Reckless back in the lineup, with him playing for these crit marksmen, they are happy to go late. They're happy to look for team fights, and Hylissang is kind of adapting his play style to whatever the squad needs.
Exactly that. And right now with this early game lead, you see him roaming around the map a lot, pairing himself up with Roxa to try and look for picks, control vision, and make sure that they can push this early game lead that they have. We're just approaching the 20-minute mark at the moment, and already Fnatic have built up a pretty sizable advantage.
The individual leads that Fnatic's carriers are building is actually pretty astounding. I mean, just have a quick snapshot of the CS there. You can see both Caps and Reckless very far ahead of their opponents. And 100 Thieves just brought 4 people to the top lane just to make sure nobody died to Aurelia again. The amount of pressure that Fnatic are able to put across this entire map right now, coupled with the 4,000 or 5,000k gold lead they've built. We talked about this team as they moved into playoffs being a little slower, falling down a bit earlier, has not been the case, and they're still a really good team fighting team as well.
And so when I look at 100 Thieves and the situation that they're in, yes, things look dire, but they still have great team fighting at their disposal. Things like Graves and Kai'Sa will scale better into the late game, and they still have that own insurance if they can get there. If they can find a way to slow Fnatic down, if there's a way to either find a pick, maybe get a shutdown onto Caps, that's a lot of gold that you can get back in your pockets that you can still rely on a late game opportunity to maybe swing this game back in your favor.
And as much as people like to kind of joke about it, one of 100 Thieves' strengths really has been avoiding loss, right? They never take the fight that loses them the game, where they are often, when they are doing well, very good at avoiding those fights, giving up the minimum the entire game. And we'll see if they can get this turret back top. Looks like they should be able to, closing that gap somewhat. You know, if you can hold this at a 3K, 4K deficit for the next 10 minutes, hey, maybe that's not such a big deal. But for now, Fnatic are still fully in control.
Again, 3 members moving almost behind this tier 2 in mid. Oh, hello, Soaz. Does have an ulti, gonna use it and get out of there. A good bit of pressure there from Under and Someday.
It's a good thing that Siren has that ult, otherwise that might have been another isolated death for Soaz.
I saw him use it down towards the bot lane earlier. I actually had to quickly check the cooldown to see if he had it. Thankfully he did. Does have his flash as well, so all's well that ends well there for Soaz this time.
Yeah, so Fnatic definitely slowed down compared to all the early kills they were finding themselves. 100 Thieves definitely showing way more respect towards Caps and his solo kill potential. Now that he's completed the Tiamat and the Trinity Force, and he's also picked up the Jaram's Fist, things looking pretty good for the solo laner. And as you mentioned earlier, Zel, they've kind of moved him off into a side lane right now. He's more than capable of 1v1ing pretty much anyone on the 100 Thieves side, so he's just generating that pressure that you imagine will turn into Baron pressure over the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, and at the very least, it should allow Fnatic to easily get vision elsewhere on the map, easily take control of some of the neutral objectives, you know, even on the bottom side, things like dragons, because if you have to always send 2 to 3 members to make sure you're not just dying to Caps, well, guess what? Fnatic can have more members elsewhere, taking small advantages, stealing away jungle camps, and really doing that to try to slowly extend the lead.
Also, again, giving space, giving Reckless farm, all things looking good right now for Fnatic. 100 Thieves, though, looking to kind of spark up the tenacity we've seen for them all year long, honestly, from the side. See if they can dig their heels in and kind of find their way to that 30-35 minute Baron goodness that they've been so well known for.
The thing for Fnatic is if they want to threaten this Baron, then they need the Scion with them, because he's the only one really capable of tanking the Baron up and kind of having this Baron dance begin. The rest of them can't really threaten it unless the vision is completely in their favor, which right now it is, but even then, their Baron isn't the fastest. So we'll see if they want to try and run the risk, or if they're just waiting to try and find themselves a pick.
But you can see 100 Thieves very worried about that Baron. Nice double pink ward set up around the pit. Another pink ward in this side brush around mid lane, and forcing out a blue trinket that early on that 100 Thieves is saying, hey, even at 21 minutes, they could be taking this. And they're going to have to be really careful about how they advance their vision. But you can see 100 Thieves trying to establish their defensive lines from where they can move forward and check on the Baron at the very least.
They're still fighting here? How did this happen? I thought that would be done 30 seconds ago.
Well, Fnatic have now just gone back to spend some of their gold. First items now finally being completed for 100 Thieves. Luden's Echo is now done. Stormrazor's working towards the Rage Blade for Rakara as well. Someday still not really doing much with that Catalyst. Looks like he may be working towards... He still has very little
He's going to
armor.
get a Warmogs, yeah.
Yeah.
Building really almost no armor, and he has
really
perk treads.
surprised. Really surprised.
Really dislike the build, but we'll see how it's going to pan out for him. I mean, he may not be a target, and eventually he's going to pick up some armor, but Ryu's got to be careful here.
Yeah, what a good re-engage ever. Hylissang, he thought he was getting picked, and indeed
coming
it's Ryu
in.
that has to get out of there. Aggressive TP from Soaz. Well, looks to charge in here, but Someday does match.
now all 5 members of Fnatic have grouped up. No teleports available on either side. This is where Fnatic say, let's go for the Baron. The big thing, though, is that Hylissang's ulti is unavailable. So one of the big engage tools has disappeared. So as though, looking for a potential flank, because 2 members of 100 Thieves are nowhere near.
Yeah, they're going to have to buy time. Ssumday has his ult, but they don't really have a good team behind him. Afro maybe already caught us, so as he's able to grab the knock-up and force the flash. Now
The
Under
ulti.
going to be the target, also going to force another flash.
Really well done from Fnatic, the turn. That's how 3 flashes down. Ryu already had to go away, and they're going in.
Good pull there onto Afro, but Cap already kind of locked at the front side on a rampage now as he takes down Afro, and now Fnatic 4v5. Reckless insta-flash forward, looking to seal this team fight in almost an instant. And he's going to go down after the knock-up. Caps grabs yet another kill in this game.
And Fnatic are more than happy to force the fight. They quickly turn back towards the Baron. Hylissang's ult is nearly up, but they're actually looking for more.
You want to apply a bit more pressure, going to take this wave and now perhaps fade back to Baron again. Still have all of that vision. They have worked tirelessly to grab for themselves. And with Ander still dead for 15 seconds, this should be a very simple Fnatic Baron.
Yeah, we'll see if 100 Thieves try to challenge for it. They may, simply because losing it at this point probably means the game is over. So we'll see if they can make a miracle happen, but no smite. And at this point, I think you just back off.
Gonna be some heroics here from Ryu or Rakara, but I don't think they can quite do a Cap. Over the top, Ssumday, he flashed into the back of the pit, and Reckless does manage to get the Baron there for Fnatic. Now Soaz has locked everyone up, and that's a sitter for Fnatic to pick up, and Rakara, he's so low. Flash E from Soaz gets the double kill.
Nicely done by Fnatic, but that was actually very close. Ssumday spellbooked a smite to flash in and try to steal it. Broxah did not even use his smite, so very lucky that Reckless was able to pick that one up for him.
Good spot there, Azale, as Ssumday, it looked like he was diving into his death, but he was trying to make that last-ditch effort for his team. But now with 3 members dead, Fnatic will secure the mid lane inhibitor. Ander's actually gone up to catch the wave, but Caps is right behind it.
Oh no, goodbye. Oh, actually might be okay, Vanguard's Edge. Never mind, I take it all back.
3 solo kills this game for the Fnatic mid laner. Fantastic performance overall. He's going to go back and spend the Spoils of War.
Hard to ask for any more from Caps, and here is the engage one more time. Caps does get by the scan of the week, but they just go straight onto Afro move, knowing that there's not enough damage here from 100 Thieves. They're too far behind. Soaz is doing a fantastic job creating space as well.
And there's absolutely no threat onto Reckless either. The fact that they could just tank that ulti up and no one could get onto the backline meant that Fnatic were confident they would come out on top of that fight. Here we see Ssumday flashing over the wall, trying to secure the smite.
Let's see how low he actually gets it to. 76, and no
Very
smite
close.
used by Broxah. That was very close,
Yeah.
but honestly, even if they steal that, that maybe gives them a little bit of hope in the game, but they're down over 10,000 gold. They are monumentally behind, and Fnatic is looking dominant.
And we heard from Jack during the World's Group Draw that Fnatic is one of the fastest teams when it comes to actually closing out these games. And when they have the Baron buff, they're extremely aggressive.
It's happening again!
That makes 4.
He has 4 times as many solo kills as Soaz has isolated deaths this game. Incredible stuff from the Fnatic mid laners. In the meantime, they'll finish off this tier 2 and still with a minute 20 left on Baron. These side lane inhibs shouldn't last too long.
They are pushing up towards the top side and the bot side as well. 100 Thieves with only a 4 versus 5 situation. Things are looking dire for them as they try to make the base defense real.
Yeah, I mean, Caps is pushing on the top side by himself. You can see Soaz is just going to tank this up for now, and they're just going to walk right in, knock down another inhibitor turret here. Fnatic looking so good.
Looks like, again, turrets are going to fall down. Inhib now going to get threatened on the bot side of the map. Caps also working on the other side as well.
Yeah, they should be able to take down another inhibitor here. It seems like it's pretty much all done, but the crying Caps, though, fighting up against somebody in the top side.
Yeah, again, Cap's going to try and get out of there. Vanguard's Edge is going to dance around. And now Hylissang looking to re-engage it all. The charm does land. Again in the front side, Broxah on a killing spree, able to take down the Graves. And there's just not really much that 100 Thieves can do. Fnatic are dominating in every sense of the word. They'll smash down the inhibs. They'll take down the Nexus. Reckless just finishes it in style. And from minute 1 to minute 27, Fnatic styled all over 100 Thieves.
What a debut on the world stage here for the 2018 Fnatic. Looking so damn good. And Caps, you have to say, living up to the hype so far. Dominant in the 1v1, dominant in the side lane. And Fnatic was able to play so well around that, take that pressure from mid, and move it elsewhere on the map.
And Soaz dies isolated. It wouldn't be Fnatic if it didn't happen. Everything comes together. Beautiful stuff from the Fnatic squad. 100 Thieves. Like, initially, I was impressed with how underused his early jungle pathing. I did feel like that things were going okay, but we had question marks around the build from Sunday. Ryu overstepped slightly, and unfortunately, Rakara, he was in a losing matchup, and then Fnatic played extremely well off the back of a single solo kill from Caps into hard camping that bot side.
And I wish I'd said it before the solo kills happened, but this year I've become among the converted for Caps. When his career first started, I was baffled, confused, unimpressed at a lot of times, but this is someone that if Rookie wasn't at this tournament, would be my favorite mid laner to watch, because the things he does, the pressure he applies, and the flair in which he plays is so much fun to watch.
And I think he really kind of made his grand entrance onto the international scene at MSI. That was when so many people stood up and really took notice of the individual talent, of the skill of this guy, because no longer you could say he's not doing it against the best. At MSI he did, and at Worlds, he's here to prove that he is not just among the best. He is, even sometimes top